Hello and welcome to the workout. We're going to start with my pre-workout drink. This is what I've been having recently before my workouts. So I put some Gatorade powder in just to get a little bit of sugar. Kind of depends on if I've eaten recently or not. Will change the amount I put in. I then put in essential amino acids. I actually like the flavor of this. It makes the water more palatable and it adds a little bit of amino acids for the workout. I also do caffeine. Now you can see here I'm actually splitting the pill apart. It comes in this just a casing, so I just peel the casing apart and put the powder in. I then add acetyl L-carnitine, which helps with kind of fat mobilization, breaking down body fat. And then I add niacin, which helps with kind of flushing the body more full of blood, helps with circulation, and it helps to suppress inflammation. It's just a nice cheap variation of what you would find in most pre-workout supplements. I get all those supplements from NutriCost, so it's actually extremely cheap compared to what you would typically find. Then, since I'm going to be doing squats today, I started with a little bit of a stretch routine. I don't push into these stretches super aggressive. This is very passive stretching. So the cross leg position works on opening up the glutes. This is a lunge position, and I'm working on opening up the hip flexor and upper quads. I'll usually hold these for about 30 seconds or so. Again, I'm not using this as a primary warm-up, meaning I'm not trying to maximize these. I just want to get some blood flow, get into some good positions, help to start to open up the tissues. This is a hamstring / adductor stretch. If you put your foot more straight ahead, it's more hamstrings. If you flare it out more to the side, it's more adductor. But this helps me also just get my mindset for the day, kind of think through what I want to do in the workout and make sure I'm focused. And then doing some wide stance. You could call these good mornings. I'm not really holding on to anything. But the idea is just to continue stretching the hamstrings and adductors, then doing some side to side variation of Cossack squats. And again, help opening up the hips, start getting everything around the joints kind of balanced out. So that way there's nothing super tight pulling on one side of the joint, causing the joint to move off center. Then use one of my kettlebells and just do a goblet hold squat. This is working on just getting good depth, getting stretched into the bottom squat position. I'll just do 10 reps one way, then I just turn sideways so you can see I'm getting a good depth here, trying to keep the lower back nice and flat. Then I'll go ahead and set up for squats. So this is my new setup I have in my home gym. I have a Sorinex Apex rack, which has a cable station on the left and the right sides. The J cups that I'm moving around are from Mutant Metals. They are awesome because you can use them as regular J cups or snapback J cups, which works as a monolift. And then there's my transformer bar from Pookie Strength. The position I choose for that is a safety squat position with the post in the second hole available. This gives me a pretty good uprighted squat, but not so upright that I don't get any glute or hamstring involvement, but it is very quad dominant. Then with those warm-ups, I'm pairing the Nautilus glute drive. So what I ended up working on was sets of 5 on squats, sets of 10 on the glute drive. I worked up to 225 on the squat. That would be assuming the bar is 45 pounds. It's actually 55 pounds. So I guess it was 235. And then I just started adding 10 pounds per round. So it was 235, then 45, 255, 265, 275, 285, 295, 305. Then I ended the workout with 315. And then paired with all the squats was doing an increase in weight load on the glute drive. So I started empty, then did a plate per side, then a plate to 25, then 2 plates, then 2 plates 25, 3 plates. Worked all the way up to 4 plates. So I like this pairing because the way that I like to squat is very quad dominant. I'm going to get some glute involvement for sure, but it's not max effort glutes. I actually have a day later in the week where I'll do a lower body focused workout where I intentionally focus more on glutes and hamstrings. So I just add the glute drive here to get a little bit of extra glute work on this day, but it doesn't compete with my strength on the squats. So the squats still feel as though I have full effort to give to them, but this allows me to get a little extra volume on the glutes every week. Now, I like to, when I'm using this machine, I like to get a pause at the top. Too often, you'll see people just kind of shove it to the top, then they drop to the bottom, and you're not going to get a maximal glute stimulus compared to how much work you're doing. So, getting the pause at the top ensures that the glutes and the hamstrings can actually hold that position, and it gets a good stress load for the amount of work of taking the time to do the machine, load the weights, and everything. When I'm doing the squats, my main focus is trying to remain pressed into my heels. I want to make sure that I lower down through my heels and drive up through my heels. It's typically a default for people to fall forward into their toes. And although that would be good quad stress, it's going to overly stress the knees, and I don't want to do that. So with this bar positioning, and with the narrowness of my stance, I'm going to get the quads involved even if I push through the heels and focus on that. Pushing through the heels helps ensure that I get a balance between the quads and the glutes, and that I don't push unevenly through the ankle, knee, or hip, or overload the lower back. It's just a much better position to lift in. So that is something that I would always recommend people do, is make sure that you focus on being heavy in the heels. Ideally, you'd want your foot pressure to be mid-foot, but it's going to default to, if you're not paying attention, drifting forward into your toes as you lower down. So you want to make sure that you really focus on heels so that way they do stay pressurized. Now, I tried to get some different angles. They didn't turn out the way that I thought they would, but I didn't want to redo the sets. So this isn't a great angle, but I wanted to show that my feet aren't much wider than my hips, and this is going to help me get good quad focus. If I go any wider, I'm going to get way more adductors, and that's not necessarily my focus of this day. So the intent is to take a narrow stance that doesn't feel like there's an impingement in my hip, doesn't feel like I'm having to overly bend forward at the bottom, but I want as narrow of a stance as I can manage to feel good in, feel balanced in, so that way I can really get that quad focus. So here's the top set of the Monolift glute drive. And again, I'm getting a good pause here. This was definitely starting to get pretty hard to hold for that pause. So that was a plenty heavy enough weight. You can see the machine can actually hold significantly more, even though I can't. But that was heavy enough. And in bodybuilding, that's what you're really looking for, is what's heavy enough, not what's maximal. Then here's another view. I was wanting to try to show a little bit about the depth that I'm getting to and the shin angle. So you can see, can't quite see where my toes are, but the shins at the bottom of the squat are very angled forward. That's because I'm in my Olympic lifting shoes and I have that narrow stance. And that is helping me optimize the quad involvement. So it's okay if you're bodybuilding squatting for quads to have your shins go forward. My knees actually do go a little bit past my toes, and that just has to do with my anatomy. I have very long femurs, upper leg bones, and that's okay as long as my heel stays pressured, as long as my lower back doesn't hurt, as long as the squats feel like they're working the intended muscle. If my knees go a little past my toes, that's okay. So then to finish off the workout, I did some high reps on the leg press. I did a couple sets of 20 as warm-ups, and then 2 harder sets of 20. I'll just be showing 3 of the sets here. But this was a really good workout. In total, the majority of the work of the workout came from all the sets of squats and glute drive. So the squats, for example, I warmed up to the 235, but then I did the 235 to 45 to 55 to 65 to 75 to 85 to 95, 305, 315. So that was 9 sets where I went back and forth with the glute drive. Now, 235 for 5 isn't maximal effort, but on all of the squats, I'm trying to move slow and focus on a good squeeze. So I'm making the weight feel harder than what it really is. But each set, as the weight goes up, I would use a little more momentum. I would move a little bit faster So that way I'm kind of making each weight feel as hard, like equally hard. But when they're lighter weights, I move slower with more contraction focus. When they're heavier, I'll move a little quicker and more so think of it like strength training, where you're just trying to be efficient through the movement rather than thinking of a specific muscle squeezing and contracting. But this is a typical workout I like to do where I'll pick 1 to 2 main movements, sit in those movements for a long time, and then maybe I'll do something else to finish with. I like that because it's a relatively easy workout. You don't spend a lot of time setting up a lot of different equipment or doing a lot of warm ups. So you can get an enormous amount of work in a short period of time because you're skipping a lot of those transfer elements. So this is a really good workout. Really like this. This is an example of a quad dominant leg day that I would do once in the week, usually early in the week, and then I'd follow up and do a hamstring and glute focused day later in the week. I thought this was helpful to share. If you like these kind of things, let me know, and I'll make more videos in the future. Thank you for watching.